Ukraine. We often talk about Ukraine, don't we? Or at least I do in my late night show, which I normally do. And talking about Zelensky saying that he needs more money, he needs more support, he needs more help, and he needs everything now, of course, to beat Russia. But there are things going on inside Ukraine that we may not be as aware of that are happening, and pressure is mounting on Western leaders, those that are supplying these arms and support to Zelensky, to intervene to stop the Ukraine government from banning the country's oldest and most widely supported Christian church. International lawyers acting on behalf of the Holy Synod of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church have written to the UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, US President Joe Biden and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, urging them to tell President Zelensky to suspend efforts to ban this historic institution. So, we're going to talk now to Robert Amsterdam, who's an international lawyer who's representing the Holy Synod of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Robert, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
What exactly, we would all be forgiven for not knowing this is going on, right? Because we're not getting a lot of information apart from what Zelensky wants us to hear. Okay, so there's a lot of information coming out of Ukraine from President Zelensky, who is universally loved for his stance on Russia, and we hear about what he needs. What is going on?
Well, we are in the middle of an information blackout because President Zelensky, for all his popularity, has taken control of the media, banned opposition groups, and basically suspended rule of law. And we don't hear any of it, and our Western press is seemingly happy with that. In the midst of all this, in an appeal to the ultra-right, he is banning a 1,000-year-old home of Ukrainian Orthodoxy. He's doing it in favor of a 4-year-old national church that his predecessor established, which was part of a drive to cut off any historic remnants that connected to Russia. Even though our church, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, had suspended relations from a sort of administrative standpoint in the 90s, the Zelensky team decided, not in 2014 when this war started, not even in 2022 immediately after the invasion, but when it became necessary to try to pick up more of the right-wing vote in Ukraine, they decided to go after the national church because they were moving assets and people from the national church to this new state church in an incredible, I mean, just astounding move of the secular power into the realm of the spiritual. And by doing this, they've disenfranchised literally millions of Ukrainians, and Ukrainians of a certain age who are used to worshiping in Church Slavonic, who are used to certain rituals, are being, if this bill that's before the Rada comes into effect, they're going to be deprived of all of that. And no Western political leader has stood up to defend this church. And this would be the first banning of a religion in Europe since the Nuremberg laws. Even the Nazis in 1943 were more cautious.
Let me just take you back to some of the points you made. First of all, we don't have the opposing argument here, as we were unable to get that. But also, you're talking about a time of war when often, and not just in Ukraine, the powers are suspended for press. I certainly know, as a journalist myself who's covered war, that there are things you cannot say, you cannot give away, and you cannot report on for the safety of everybody around you. Also, you're saying that this religion is being banned. What you're actually explaining to me is that it's being defunded. That's slightly different.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm saying it's being banned. We're not saying it's being defunded. Be very clear. This bill before the Rada bans the church. It basically
for its Russian connections.
No, it's basically making a false allegation of a Russian connection.
Right. So what I'm saying is they are banning it on the basis that they're saying there is a Russian connection. That's the point I was making.
They are saying without any evidence, because in fact, this church was the first one to denounce Russian aggression. This church is the church that looks after Ukrainian refugees outside of the country. This is the church that's donated tens of millions to support of the army. And this is the church whose members are fighting and dying in the trenches.
So why?
Let's be very clear. No, let me just be very clear about something. If anyone in the church was supporting Russia under a rule of law, under the rules of war, they should be tried. There is no rule of law that allows for the banning wholesale of a religion. This is absolutely unacceptable, short of proven terrorist acts, of which thankfully there are none. And still, under the test of proportionality, you would never ban the religion.
Why?
You would go after the individual.
I'm going to interrupt you here because I think you've made your point. But why?
Why don't we ban religions?
No. Why is Zelensky doing this? I mean, he's not here to answer
I'll
that,
tell
but
you exactly
why? What's in it for him?
The counteroffensive has not been successful. And destroying this church is a sop to the radical nationalists in Ukraine who are part of the base of support of his opposition. And this is, frankly, a crass political move to pick up the votes of the ultra-right wing. And they have been successful in, for instance, removing the rights of Russians to use their language properly. They've been successful in passing what are clearly and transparently discriminatory laws in Ukraine. There is a radical nationalist agenda here, again, not covered in our press, that I think this law is emblematic of. And that's why we're taking such a strong stand about it, because this is just the tip of a very dangerous iceberg. Mr. Zelensky's government controls 80% of the economy on top of everything else.
Good to talk to you. Thank you. Robert Amsterdam there, international lawyer. And like I said, we did try to get the opposing voice in on this, which is why I was being a little bit standoffish there. But we were unable to do so. So that was one view of the situation.